Hey Insiders, I'm Emma Capotis.
I'm Michael Julian.
Welcome to Festival Insider, a podcast for insiders by insiders. Happy Tuesday, everybody. We hope you are having an amazing week so far. MJ, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling really good, and I'm very excited about the guest and the conversation we're about to have because I feel there's a lot of different opinions about it, and I want to get it straight from the source and kind of see where it goes.
Yep. Today we're talking about VR. We have Sam Distaso with us. He's the vice president of business development at Sansar VR, and they create some incredible experiences. And we're going to talk to him about how festival producers and artists can use VR to create these amazing virtual shows for fans. And the possibilities are kind of endless. So we're going to chat with him today about all of that and how he sees the future of VR coming to hopefully everybody's households at some point.
Yeah, no, I'm very curious what he has to say and what they're working on. And, technology fascinates me. Although today I had a new microphone and I just realized that this doesn't fit my Mac. So apparently I have a lot to learn in that field, but let's see what Sam says about VR.
Yep. Please join us in welcoming Sam to the podcast. Well, first of all, Sam, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Of course. So let's start from the beginning. I want to get to know you a little bit better and let the audience get to know you. So can you just do a quick introduction to yourself, where you're from, what you do, and then talk a little bit about your journey to working with Sansar?
Yeah, so Sam Distaso and I kind of handle the business development and partnerships, help really kind of scaling up our kind of virtual live events platform. So what are the needs of kind of everybody in the space? So from the fan to the promoter, to the brand, to the musicians, to whether it's labels or organizers or whoever it happens to be. And so really, that's kind of what I do in my current role. I got into the space of virtual live events around 5 years ago or so. So prior to Sansar, I was at a different social virtual reality company called Altspace VR. Up until they were acquired by Microsoft. And so while I was there, I was kind of put front and center into this weird and wild world of social VR and virtual live events, like truly virtual live events. And prior to that, I hadn't worked in the VR industry. I hadn't worked in music or really much in tech. I'd done a little bit in startups. I'd worked for some bigger companies. But I think I got the bug when I had my kind of first demo at Altspace VR, and then my first week there was one of the real big moments at the time for the industry, which is when a performer called Reggie Watts was coming into VR for the first time, and so he did an event on Sansar, and it kind of highlighted at its core the two fundamental value adds of these kind of virtual live events. So it is that you don't have any of the capacity constraints, so you can have millions of people at an event, and you don't have any of the geographical constraints. So you can have people joining from all around the world. And then I started to see how, especially if you're in a VR headset, but also on some of these other devices, how you can feel physically present with somebody. So while I was there, I started to hang out. My younger brother got a VR headset on the other side of the U.S. So I was in California. He was in D.C. He was just in med school, and so on the weekends, we would hop in, put on the headsets, and we would just hang out. We'd play frisbee golf together. We'd kind of do all these different things together. And so that was sort of my first foray into VR and then virtual live events. And so then when Microsoft acquired Altspace VR, I had been kind of running the virtual live events over there for a while and seeing exactly what works and what doesn't work. And so where does this kind of crazy revolutionary sort of technology of VR, where does it fit within the kind of consumer lexicon? And so what we realized is it's like, well, VR at its core has a real big chicken and the egg problem. And so I think a lot of people that look at the industry from the outside in, they still think like, how do you solve that problem? And to many of them, they think it hasn't been solved. And that chicken and the egg is, VR needs more content in order to get more people in, but there aren't enough people always in the headsets to make it worthwhile or kind of economical for the content creators. And so that's where there's really like these two fundamental things that VR has to solve in order for any business to be successful. And it's actually the same problem. They have to first get you to overcome that friction of getting into VR. That might mean getting a headset. It might mean just providing some kind of really entertaining content. But then much more importantly, and this is the part that almost everybody else kind of misses out on, you have to get people to keep coming back into VR. So if you create a beautiful sort of cinematic experience, it's a 360 movie of sorts, that's really great for one time, but you're not going to want to keep on going back in. It doesn't consistently overcome that kind of friction. And so it's sort of it's kind of like a fun thought experiment that when you boil it all down, unless you have a super, super really popular game that you can kind of come up with, which is really hard to do, there's really only one format that we've already solved that problem, or that kind of chicken and the egg, or those two problems in the real world, and that's at a live event, right? So if we go to a comedy show, or if we're going to a class, or if we're going to a concert, or if we're going to meet up with some friends to go and see a film, all of those are an event or a live event that we're already accustomed and willing to overcome a bunch of friction, pay money, get dressed up, get in the car, fill up the gas, drive over there, wait for a while, meet everybody, then go in and experience that content together. So the real world had already solved that kind of a problem. How do you get people to keep coming back in for interesting content? And the content can keep on changing as long as you put the tools in the hands of the people that put on events. So if you can kind of create an ecosystem that isn't about the technology, but instead it's about that event producer or the event organizer, and giving them the tools and the kind of financial ecosystem and creative ecosystem with everything they kind of need, then you've actually solved that problem of where you can then have ongoing events because everybody's kind of motivated and incentivized. And so really over the last few years or so, that's what we've kind of been uniquely doing, is how can we make sure we have the technology and everything that anybody that's putting on events would need. And so really kind of bringing it up to current, we think about a lot from what does a festival need, or what would anybody that's putting these events on. And they need everything from the ability to sell tickets, because that's what they do in the real world, and digital merchandise and all the like. It needs to tie in with all the systems that they're already using. And most importantly, it needs to be available and accessible on every device. So even if you can't be fully immersed on a single, if everybody isn't just joining on a VR headset, how can you still, if you're an event organizer, you need it so that if you're promoting out an event, every single one of your audience members, whether it's on social media or where have you, they're going to be able to join in some capacity. And so I think what we've just done, and what I think is the model that's needed for the industry, is a very service provider almost orientated approach towards it, where the VR company, at least our belief is the VR company should not be the one that's producing all of the content, because then you're not really going to be able to scale up, and you're not really recognizing that there's a lot of really brilliant people who have spent lives and centuries putting on events. Like there is an art, a little bit of a science to putting on great events, promoting great events. And I think that was sort of the watershed moment for us at Sansar, was recognizing not only are we not the best ones at doing that, but we shouldn't be. And actually, if we take ourselves out of that, it's a really scalable sort of model, so that as the technologies keep on getting better and better, we just keep on helping our partners reach more audiences by making it accessible on more and more devices, providing them with all those tools, because we already know the fan experience is a great one if you can kind of come in. So how can we make it a repeatable thing? And so that's more or less what's kind of driven us to this point today. And where we're going forward is just more of, I almost want to say more of the same. So just providing everything that if MJ is putting on an event, how can we give MJ everything that he's going to need to make it really, really worthwhile financially, creatively, and all the like.
Got it. You just said so many interesting things we have to unpack here, but I want to go back to the beginning, because you said when you first tried VR, there was something that switched for you, and it changed once you saw the experience. So do you see that with other people? Like if somebody tries it for the first time, do you notice that it's a common thing that they're like, okay, this is a necessity now. Like I've had this experience. It was so life-changing. I need this in my house all the time. Do you notice that with people, or do you see more of it's a one-off experience?
So it was, what we saw early on was a lot of people being like, whoa, this is awesome. They try it out. They'd probably be in there. They might be in there with other people and headsets around the world, or even right there on hand with their colleagues and the like. But I think at that point, a lot of people really thought this is going to be awesome once everybody gets headsets. And so
Yeah.
where we've kind of benefited is just that the really big important thing that happened, I guess, like 5 years ago or so, is that all the major, really deep-pocketed manufacturers, hardware manufacturers, they invested in those kind of longer-term manufacturing cycles to get the headsets out there to kind of really push it. So now that we've finally reached the point where we're starting to see really compelling standalone headsets, now when somebody, standalone just meaning it's not tethered or plugged in, so it can just kind of go in your backpack, you turn it on, you put it on. Now that we've gotten to that point, now a lot of times when somebody gets a demo or sees it, then they think, oh, it's here because I know I can go out and buy a headset for less than an Xbox and I can have this experience or equivalent experiences at home whenever I want to. And so that's been just a change that we've sort of seen over the last like couple of years with the kind of Oculus Quest and these other kind of headsets coming out, that all just, you need them to keep on innovating and keep on making it easier and easier for folks. So to that regard, it started to be a little bit different, which is great. It's still not in every single home and multiple ones like a cell phone.
Right.
So, maybe someday, but we'll see.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's super interesting. I was going to say the one experience I had with VR was through my mother. She works for a medical device company, and she went to a conference, and they were talking about villages in Africa, about how long the walk was to get water supply. But it's one thing to say that, but then they put a VR set on and actually did the walk to see how far it was to get the water. And she was like, it just clicks in your head how difficult it is for someone. And that was her first experience with VR. And she said it was like completely life-changing to actually do that. So I can imagine. But if you're the general public listening right now, how can they get involved with Sansar? Is it purchasing a headset and then there's an experience on your site or on your platform, or how can people get involved?
So if you're a general person out there, the way that you've probably heard about Sansar isn't from Sansar. You've probably heard about it from our partners who are kind of promoting in their own events that are happening inside, because we kind of work with tons of different partners and promoters around the world around their events. And then if you want to join or kind of get more active, we do have an active community that's for kind of PC and VR users. If you're just on a phone or a Mac, you can, buy a ticket and watch that and kind of experience that event from your phone or from like just a web browser. So you can open up like Safari or Chrome if you want to, and kind of join in for those different events. So it really, what we're sort of doing is, depending on where that, that customer happens to be, if they're more on the gamer side where they have like a PC and they have a VR headset, awesome. Download Sansar. It's a free download. It's on Steam. You can go to the website, and then you can just kind of join right away. And it's this whole kind of open virtual worlds platform where there's 5,000 worlds and 50,000 items to kind of purchase. And you can socialize, you can dance, you can play all these different games, you can ride on whatever. You can kind of do whatever you kind of want. It's that really like Ready Player One metaverse. But if you don't have those, all good, you can kind of still enjoy some of these events that we have coming up. And that's kind of like your nice, like sort of putting your toe in the water, so to speak.
Yep.
And, and that's been kind of my question for the duration of the past, 8 to 10 months now. Is it really enjoyable for people that don't have the headsets? And when is it going to be available for everyone else? And, the conclusion I've come to is that it's not necessarily just about how it looks in a headset, right? There's a lot of other components to it. Let's start with music. That obviously stays the same. But I think that breaking into it and showing the people this other way to experience event is very special, even if it's now at a much more primitive level comparing to what it's going to be in headset, because I personally see lots of value, especially for the musicians, for the artists, because my thought process has always been, if you are an artist and you got, 300,000 audience of fans globally, and then you probably have, so basically most people don't know you. I mean, that goes for everyone, right? No matter how popular you are, still most people don't know you because the world is just too big. The minute you go to VR, that changes everything, because all of a sudden the fact that your concert is 18 and over doesn't exclude the younger audience to come in and join and listening to your music and learning about you, right? And becoming your fan. Just because someone isn't able to purchase a ticket to a concert no longer is a bottleneck, because now you have access to experience it in VR. Obviously, if the show is in Ibiza or Barcelona or Moscow and you live in Chicago, you no longer are out of luck. You just can experience it in a different way. And so, I mean, this is a way to, if once upon a time, before Spotify and internet in general, people had to learn about music from records, and that was changed forever. And now you can make an epic record, and 3 days later, you'll have 1 million followers, and 3 days ago, nobody knew you. It's the same for me when it comes to this world. But I think it'll just be significantly enhanced and more understood with the headset, because of how immersive the experience becomes when you have the headset on. And I think right now, the early adopters and innovators are probably enjoying it more than the rest, but it's only a matter of time until it kicks in. And, how much did pandemic really accelerate this?
Yeah, so I think so the pandemic accelerated a few things. It accelerated, initially accelerated everybody's curiosity about this. Like, what is really, we've seen so many technical advances, whether it's with our phones or consoles or TVs in our homes and all this. What is technology's capabilities to actually make us feel more connected when we obviously can't be connected? And then from there, for us at least, it expedited, weirdly, it didn't expedite the technology as much. It expedited a little bit. For us, at least, it expedited the business model, which is a very odd thing to kind of highlight, but arguably for us, at least, it's even more important. And that's because what we needed to do is with the pandemic, we realized we cannot be the bottleneck, because if you look at the landscape of kind of VR or even social VR companies, all of those social VR companies, they're all the bottleneck. Like, there's a lot more people that would love to just kind of come in, get in, do some kind of activity or some kind of event, but the platforms don't make it very easy, or they don't have quite the right tools, and they have no way of making, recouping money and all the like. And so when people during the pandemic, promoters especially, when they're losing their life savings and they need to be able to put on shows in order to appease brands, or they need to stay relevant somehow, there's just a lot more people coming into Sansar of all different sizes, shapes around the world, big, small, and everything, different levels of technological kind of sophistication. And so they came in looking for a solution. And so I think what was great is the pandemic expedited the need for a real solution, ongoing solution for these people, where they didn't know, and they still don't know, when can their business go back to normal? Is this the last time something like this is going to happen? How do we address a digitally native kind of group of, say, Gen Zers that are growing up not going to physical kind of events together necessarily, and instead are, kind of prioritize connecting on TikTok or Snapchat and the like? And so I think what's now sort of happened is this recognition around there needs to be some kind of virtual or digital offering around these live events. So whether that's kind of in a hybrid format, but in general, it's just, okay, we realize, one, on the downside, our events could be stripped from us at any moment, right? A government could strip them from us, a foreign entity could strip them from us. cancel culture could strip the, I mean, like you just don't really know, but all these things could actually play a role in taking that event away from a promoter up in Norway or wherever they happen to be. And so how can they have some kind of assurance? Well, I don't want to say it's insurance, but how can they have some kind of assurance that their event, that the show can still go on, even if everything in the physical world goes crazy? And then on the other side, it's for them recognizing that there just might be a way to leverage this technology to reach way, way, way bigger audiences that might be way more engaged, willing to spend, wanting to consume that content that the event organizers are already putting on, but they would never be able to attend, right? So for us, if we're doing it and when we see it, we see people join from just hundreds or thousands of cities from around the world when one of these kind of events are going on in Sansar. And if you're that event promoter, you're now saying, wow, I thought that my audience was only this small audience based in Germany, but it turns out my audience is all over Asia. My audience is down in Australia. They're in South America. And not only are they joining, but they're super engaged. And they might be people that wouldn't normally ever come to our physical show, even if they could. They might be more introverted. They might have more social anxiety. But now that event organizer that's based up in, wherever it happens to be, they can tap into that audience. And they can still do it to support their real life one. And so I think that's kind of been the key that's come out is how can technologies support the live event industry in more of like a symbiosis type of a way, not in a we're going to replace it, not in that, oh, now we don't need real life live events anymore. But it's more, there's a huge opportunity that I think the pandemic made them recognize, wow, we can reach all these different people. Technology is actually going to be our friend. We just have to figure out the new rules of the game with it. So how do people connect? How do people engage? How should it tie in with a real world event? How can we use it to gain much greater exposure and the like? And I think, MJ, you've seen this and you know some of our partners even better than I do. But if you're a nightclub venue, but you have a virtual offering also, you're always in the press. You're always in the news. Everything you do now is exciting because you're the only club that's open. And so now as things open back up again, you can start doing your real life events and then simultaneously kind of your virtual events because you've built up this sort of bigger name brand presence than just within your own kind of home city.
I follow. And look, for the record labels out there, right? Just thinking out loud, no marketing consultant checks need to be sent to me, send them to Emma. But listen, you have a label and you're a featured artist spread between Estonia and Sri Lanka and Chicago. It's very difficult financially to do an event if you are a label that can only sell 800 tickets because everyone's got to fly in, the fans are spread. All of a sudden, you do a label showcase on a VR platform. All the artists participate live, totally exclusive sets. The fans from all over the world join, share, and you gain more fans. If you don't see how that leads into more tickets sold in live events, then you are having a short-sighted vision. And that is exactly what I've been saying since the very beginning. All of this is meant to explode the music and the industry, just like a music tech, like a Spotify, injected a totally new life into the lives of independent artists who, when they can make a big track, can rely on Spotify and their Discover Weekly and all these algorithmic playlists to eventually make the song a hit. They would never be able to do that without the platform like that. So the way I imagine the future, and I'm delusional, so I dream differently, but you come home and you have this Netflix-like maybe device, maybe it's connected to something else. You put the headset on and then you choose. And this, all these events and all these festivals available to choose from, and you pay a monthly fee. And if it's a special superior event, you pay, $1.99 pay-per-view and you're there. The opportunities are completely endless. Now, if you don't set up your brand or your artist profile or your label to be VR accessible, when that happens, you'll miss out. That's it. So my advice to you, don't miss out. This is real. It's not going to go anywhere. Believe you me, it's accelerating very quickly. and we should really embrace it and be curious about it, and not think that this is a replacement for live events, because that's not what it is.
I want to add to that as well, because I would say one thing that I've seen events successfully do is some of their live stream events. And I would say even post pandemic, I think tickets are going to sell like that because everybody's going to want to go. And so you're going to have all of these people who couldn't snag a ticket or couldn't afford a plane and hotel and all of that and still want to experience it. So if the festivals are offering a VR experience on top of that, which I would imagine you're in the comfort of your own home. You don't have to drive anywhere. You don't have to get dressed up. It's just like you can enjoy the experience. And I would imagine you'd be even fully immersed, probably have a great view of the stage, all from the comfort of your home. And I would say the festivals who have offered some sort of live streaming experience have had incredible marketing, because people at home are just seeing how amazing the experience is. And then that totally sells the festival versus some of the other ones who don't have as much coverage or who haven't offered live streams like that. You know, I know that's what's driven me to Tomorrowlands and Ultras and things like that, because of the success of their live streams. So I think it's definitely something people should take advantage of in the future, especially as tickets are probably going to become harder and harder to get a hold of, I can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, to that point too, there's kind of a lot of fun things. You can think about it as like during the event what you can experience. You could also say, hey, could we allow some kind of fun thing to go on ahead of the event now? Because if you're the event organizer at the real world event, you book out the real estate, you're leasing out the land or the property during these times. You're working with physical kind of lighting crews that all need to be timed just right to be there just over, say, that festival weekend, if that's kind of how we look at it then too. Whereas in the virtual space, you're not really paying for that real estate. You're not paying for all these other kind of things there. So you could do like interesting like roads to the festival, right? So you could say, hey, in the road to the festival, you can check this out, get teasers, behind the scenes meet and greets with talent and all the like, collect items that you can then redeem at the real life festival or vice versa. It might be after the festival, for everybody that's kind of missing out, they had a great time. Hey, if you want to relive some of that experience, if you want to relive some of that kind of magic afterwards, you can hop into the kind of virtual spaces. And again, now for at least us, it's all, how can you kind of merge these two realities together, right? So how can the physical reality and the digital realities sort of play off one another, whether it's before, during, after, if it's for things like scan a QR code at the real life festival for digital goods or vice versa. Go into the digital space, find a secret item that you can then redeem at the real world festival. And so I think all that you'll end up seeing is you'll see more and more kind of creative ways to market it, to your point, Emma. How can it be marketed? How can these fans kind of join? Because not everybody can come. And even if in theory they lived really close, maybe not everybody can afford it. How can they still pay something? How can they engage in some kind of a way where it's a social and fun experience at some point with that kind of IP being the festival itself? And what makes sense for the festival? Well, if they can do something virtually that helps them sell more tickets or get more eyeballs or bring on more brand sponsors because they know engagements are going to be higher. Now, if you're the festival, if you're any kind of event organizer, you're always thinking, where are my audiences? How can I go and tap into those audiences? And weirdly enough, the things that we've seen a huge uptick on that ends up kind of ending up in Sansar is people going onto Twitch and watching Twitch streams, right? So what is these kind of online communities that are now kind of gravitating, whether it's live stream or what have you, how are festivals now going to kind of tap into that when they actually do have a real world event to put on and promote? And so I think that's kind of where a lot of this kind of like VR and just events being able to do more creatively ahead of time and all the like without the cost, it's just going to be a whole new sort of creative playground. I think that realization, you two both kind of know, that's the exciting realization on the fan side, is that when every one of my favorite events or promoters or organizers starts to recognize that it's just a whole new fun creative playground that they're kind of tapping into with huge audiences, huge eyeballs, massive reach, fractions of the cost, unlimited kind of things you can play around with creatively, like the laws of physics and the like. Now, the ones that benefit are just the fans. Because now it's like, ooh, that's additional content I didn't have before that I would definitely tune into. How do I kind of tap into that kind of experience?
And I think that the technology is going to keep evolving, and you're going to see crazy, absolutely crazy way of enjoying this type of entertainment. Because if we do an Elro show, right, and we film all the acrobats and all the performers do their thing, and that's exactly how it's going to be in the VR world. That's going to be like next level. And to me, it was always a big part of it was the connection, right? If you live in Finland and I live in New York, we can create that connection there and being part of this world, so to speak. Yeah, this is really fascinating. I think it's very hard to really understand it until you experience it. So, we hope that whoever is listening or watching, if you are in the industry, please do whatever you can to be on top of this and work with your teams on getting yourself into a VR ready mode. And if you are the fans, start attending some of this so you know what we're talking about. So speaking of the events, 2020, the year of pandemic, some great events happening on the platform. I mean, tell us who you have. I mean, I've seen Glastonbury, Elro obviously did that, Junction, Tobacco Dog, but I also seen so many individual shows. I lost track. It seems like everyone's doing it. So who have you had and who is coming up? Anything juicy to share?
Oh, there are definitely some juicy ones coming up. Yeah, so I think for us at least, the best part, the part that we get excited about is when Sansar is just out of the way. So the best part that's happened recently, really because of 2020, is now I don't even know everybody that's coming up because a lot of them are able to do it without us being nearly as kind of directly involved. And that's kind of awesome. So to the fan, as you see how it kind of boils down, all it means is now if somebody owns a virtual venue or they kind of want to build it themselves, you can kind of be either way, they can just be putting on these events. They can be working with their brands in the background. They can be working with other promoters or talent in the background. And then we'll just there at the final help, the final part of that to help them get the ticket put on the right way or do an optimization pass and things like that. So now I think, the examples of those are, we started off really kind of heavily in electronic music, and that's where our kind of music heartbeat lives. But really, for us, we kind of view ourselves as just a service provider. So we're now kind of moving into all genres of music with some announcements that'll come out over the next couple of months. Larger and larger properties like festivals and all the like that want to have it built out, that want to do it commit to doing it basically every year, but where they're going to be bringing in 70, 80 plus different artists across hip hop, across pop, EDM, rock, classic rock. You can start to imagine what could you do with some more of these kind of legacy acts that don't want to travel, don't want to go on tours. And then just, whether it's to the labels, hey, how could they have a record label venue where there's some interesting things kind of coming out on that front too. I think one thing that for us at least, so we have, these Elro shows and Junction 2 and additional Lost Horizon, and the list kind of keeps on going on and on. What we love about is the repeat. So what we find is, unlike kind of anywhere else, if somebody kind of comes in and does an event on another social VR platform or within a video game, kind of like that Travis Scott Fortnite, what happened in there, all of those video games are all operating like the promoter, right? So they're going to book out the talent one time to kind of get that press sizzle. And then that talent will never go back into the game. They kind of, both sides got what they needed from it. Sansar, because of how we're kind of set up, once somebody comes in one time, they're very likely to come back over and over again, keep updating the space, new talent, new special effects and all the like, so that they can actually build up this recurring thing. Because what we found is the content that they put on in Sansar. So Elro, MJ, Elro, they come into Sansar, they did an event kind of with Beatport and one of our other kind of venue partners. Sansar more or less isn't as directly involved. And the cool part is that content was like the most engaging content that they did during the entire pandemic. And so they look at that and say, oh, this is great. Let's bring, our brand partner, Desperados or Heineken, back in as well. So you can actually see the full event ecosystem working. And so all that we're now doing here is just trying to make all those connections. And I'll put one, I haven't gotten this fully clear with them. I'm trying to talk them into it, but this is just, for this Elro show, and they'll probably kill me on this piece of it, but one thing that I'm hoping we can talk them into, and we'll see. And this is just where it starts to get really wild, the kind of capability. So Elro's already come in. They've done something with us before, which is great. It was a great success. They're coming back in. This time, oh man, I'm going to get killed if I say this. So let me see. How can I say it without fully saying it?
Say it in English, and then it's okay.
I can say, okay, yeah, and then nobody will get upset. Well, so, Elro likes to do a lot of these fantastical, really kind of big and out there types of views. So, it'd be kind of cool. What you can do now, like with a VIP ticket, starts to get exciting. So what you could maybe say is, say they had, oh gosh, I don't know. I'm going to get slaughtered for saying
it. I got
so cool.
I was going to say, this will be out in a month if that helps.
Okay, that counts.
Let's do it. If anything, the guy, I'll talk to the guy.
Okay, you can talk to them. Well, this is only because it's to you that MJ and Emma like it. Okay, so the interesting part is, so one thing that they showed us, like one photo of potentially doing something like where they had like a 3D model of a dragon. And so when I got into VR really early on, it was like a running joke at Sansar that I really just got into VR because I really wanted to ride on the back of a dragon. I thought, oh, that'd be so cool. I could never do it in the real world. Well, because of some of the recent technological change, at least, now I was like, how cool would it be if maybe you pay a VIP ticket and then you get to hop on the back of a dragon during the show. The dragon's going to fly around and you can control it and shoot fireballs at everybody as you're kind of flying around on the back of this dragon. And so for us, at least, it's just very much of a, well, now that's a real experiential sort of thing. So say you hadn't put on a headset.
Now you're talking. There you go. Feel the guts.
It's like, oh, that's the kind of thing that I've been waiting to see. I don't want to just sit back and watch this thing, but if you can put me on a dragon, if I'm shooting this and while the music and all the effects and everything are happening and you're kind of doing this, now you can start to really play around with these experiences that are like, oh, now that's going to make for a great event experience.
And for those who don't know, at Elro, in Ushuaia, we do have dragons. They're kind of like floating over the crowd. Gigantic, full-size blown, like covering Ushuaia. So this would be very realistic, not some, don't think of it some crazy shit's happening. This is a part of the show.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And then we just say, with all these tools, Elro, you know how to run your show. Let's just make sure you and your guys, from the lighting to the visuals to special effects to the artists and everything, that you just have all the tools you need to put on a great show. Because Sansar doesn't know how to put on a great show. Elro, you know how to put on a great show. We just want to give you the tools.
How cool would it be if you have a very special VIP ticket, right? And you get to walk into a DJ booth live as the set goes on, and like, I don't know, pick a track for the DJ to play, like your favorite track that he'll mix in live, like real time, not like, in theory, in reality. And you pick the track, and then like the 25,000 people that are watching are all gonna hear that track that you just picked. I mean, that's an experience, right? It's not a made up world anymore. This is real stuff.
That's it. And really then, if you kind of look at where it's all sort of heading, at least for the music industry, we do events of all kind of in all these different sort of call it verticals. But within the music industry, it's sort of turning into any one of like these Sansar events just ends up being a massive online or a massive digital party. So to that degree, how can you make it as great of a fan experience at that party as possible on any kind of device? And so how can you turn a passive viewer who might normally just watch something on Twitch or, I mean, you mentioned like Tomorrowland, you might kind of normally tune into a stage and kind of sit back. How can you turn them from a passive viewer to an active viewer, where they're directly engaging and where if they're saying, hey, click this, like play that next track, DJ X, that you could actually impact the show live. Or if you're clicking on certain interactive components, it could trigger things inside of the virtual venue itself that everybody else can kind of see. And so it's heading more and more towards that path where a lot of this stuff is going to be fan driven and kind of live and interactive that way across all devices. And then if you have a VR headset, it's just going to be like one of the craziest parties that you can sort of go to there.
That was going to be my question for you. So say, is it more that you like buy, say it's an event, do you buy a ticket to the event and then you have to tune in at a certain time? And then when you put the headset on, what is that experience like? Like, can you see people around you and talk to them and interact with them? Or are you just putting it on and watching the show in real time?
Yeah, and I know MJ could probably talk to it also. I know from your past experience there. It's very much the social, that first version you mentioned. So if you're putting on that headset and you're coming to an event, it's exactly like that. You could go and buy the event, a ticket to a Sansar event. You could buy that ticket on Ticketmaster. You could buy it on C-Tickets. You could buy it on one of these other places that you're comfortable going to. And then when it comes time for the event, you have like an email that'll say, okay, go here. You load in, and then you could be, say you're on your PC at first, and you're like, oh, wow, I see all these other avatars. People kind of join as avatars. They're buying, they're wearing Elro t-shirts, or they're wearing kind of funky Monster Cat helmets or whatever else it happens to be there. And as you're in there, you're talking. So you're all mic'd up. You can also do a chat. You can do dance moves with everybody else. You can interact with the world and the environments. You could pick up a glow stick off the ground and toss it to somebody on the other side of the venue. And it's all as if you're kind of right there in it. And so, yeah, we were kind of built as a social platform from the beginning. So it is highly kind of sociable. And it's also, we wouldn't be able to really stand by that moniker of it being really a live events platform, when I would argue the most important part about any live event, maybe it's the music, it's also probably the socializing with others. And so it's how can you kind of match that same type of an energy that you would get at a real world event.
Right. That's so cool.
So it's a big sort of weird kind of melting pot.
No, but that's cool because you're exactly like building community around it. And I can imagine the artists with really, really loyal fans too would just love doing that and meeting new people in there. Do you have any favorite experiences that you've created in the past? Any that stand out to you?
Well, the one that just because of that and thinking about from the artist perspective, I think MJ, you might know about this one, but I thought it was just so cool. It was for one of these shows we did a while back. So we had Fatboy Slim come in. And so Fatboy Slim had performed, he kind of done it ahead of time against a green screen. And we didn't realize it, but then during the show itself, so he's like performed against a green screen, dropped into a venue, looks awesome. Everybody is inside. All these avatars are inside, like partying and everything, rocking out, singing along to it and all this. Then what he did is he actually he had a headset. He created an anonymous account, and then he joined as an avatar while he's watching himself perform, but he got to join as a fan, and so I think that he was partying and dancing, and he's a female avatar instead. And so he had a great quote about it, but it was that was just pretty cool, because then what he got to do is, Fatboy Slim, basically he did the recording probably nearby his home. He kind of had time. He got to come into the event, and he actually got to experience it from the fan perspective while hearing how everybody's kind of talking about it, everybody's sort of partying to it and all the like, without having to leave his home really. And so that was a kind of a cool way of seeing what's kind of possible there. Where the artist can come in and watch and experience.
That's awesome. So. Yeah, I can't even imagine how that experience was. Well, and you get to just see people's real honest reactions too, if you're just hiding amongst the crowd. MJ, do you have any other questions? I just had one more, but I'll let you go.
No, go.
No, I just was going to say, looking ahead, I know you mentioned like a couple of really exciting things that you're currently working on, but where do you see this in like 5 years from now?
Man, we thinking like if you can predict 6 months out in this space, you're like an oracle,
Yeah.
5 years is tricky. I think all that I would say is all the trends that we've seen, especially during the pandemic, but even before the pandemic, I think those trends are only going to expedite. So a couple of those, so I'll just call out a few different interesting trends, then we can kind of talk about how it's probably going to shape out in the future. So if you take a look at these trends of just different types of entertainment verticals doing collaborations or mixing and mashing a little bit. So that could be a YouTuber that's then doing a boxing match, or doing stand-up comedy, or esports doing music events and streamers and all these kind of things. So if you just look at a number of those, where it's all heading is more and more cross community collaborations, and they're all heading to a more and more digitally native kind of space. So, we always have our phone on us. Gaming has kind of become, in some ways, gaming has almost become cool with Fortnite and this younger generation even playing like Roblox and the like. And I think all that you're just going to see is you're just going to see more and more things, more and more, maybe some of the traditional structures around some of the people that were the middlemen or middle women before, some of them kind of finding new ways to kind of fit in with this, where if I'm so if you take it, say you're a massive artist coming out with a huge album, what you'd be smart to do is you'd say, what I want to do is say I'll do something in Sansar, but I want to do it when a major film is coming out and somehow tie it in with that. I also want to do it with a huge esports team that's going to come in and kind of help me party and promote it too. Maybe I also want to do it with some other huge kind of, stand-up comedy thing or whatever happens to be, right? Sort of all the kind of content you might even see at like a music festival.
Mm-hmm.
All of that, what we sort of think is, whether it's this influencer-driven kind of agenda or what have you, it's all going to become one big live entertainment melting pot. And so I think we'll see more and more of that kind of happening, and just people joining on more and more different types of devices to kind of tap into that content. And then once you've tapped into one, what else is going on? So if I go onto Twitch to watch one streamer, I might then stay around for a totally different streamer in a different area because I'm now exposed to it.
Mm-hmm.
All of that, but mapping out, say, in the VR space, this kind of 3D virtual space, again, with that same focus around events, I think for quite a while still.
Let me ask you a question. What if, so me and Emma are very connected to the world of shuffle dancers. If we give the shufflers costumes, and can they dance at home, in their garage, whatever, outside? And can that be live portrayed as people are in a VR? They can see that person actually dance, live moves. Because that would be epic.
Yeah, so I think you could probably, I'm not as familiar with those dances, but I'm sure you could. Like, we've done live streams of the artists, live streams where they're even shot against a green screen, where they're performing against a green screen and they're calling people out live who are inside the virtual space and back and forth. So the last little, maybe one interesting thing that's sort of coming up right now is, again, this whole idea of like hybrid. So there's two interesting things that are happening with like hybrid events that we're seeing. The first one is even like with Zoom. So, hey, if I'm on a Zoom call or the three of us are on this call, could we have this all inside Sansar, but where there's another window, so you have the three of us and there's another window, and that could be a live stream into the virtual space where there's 20 different avatars, for instance, where we're now having this conversation, the three of us, plus with everybody that's inside Sansar as an avatar, where now you can kind of do these sort of cross-reality communication a little bit better, since we're also familiar with Zooms and the like. That's the first one. The second thing that we're seeing is more and more what we'll call like hybrid events, or what the Junction 2 folks are planning, or what Monster Cat's kind of done. And that's where you could be, how can you say, hey, I'm in the physical world, I want to do an event with the virtual crowd, but without me putting on a headset necessarily. So that could be dancers that want to do a live stream and kind of do it that way. Monster Cat did one interesting one, just as a story. So they did one where they set up a massive LED screen at the back of their real life kind of concert venue. I think they had like 5,000, 10,000 people at this real life show. And at the back, they put up this huge LED screen, which just showed a live stream into their virtual Sansar kind of concert venue. Simultaneously, inside the virtual Sansar concert venue, we put up a live stream of the real life event. And so you had this kind of two-way live stream, which all it meant was when you were walking by physically, the real world kind of Monster Cat LED screen, you're like looking up at it and you're like, what is all that? You're seeing like a virtual or digital party going on. There were avatars that would call out the people in the real world that were walking by. So you had an avatar basically shouting out like, hey, you in the red shoes. And the person in the red shoes would kind of look around and like, did I just get called out? Did somebody in the video game just shout me out? And then they'll go back and forth. So now you're having a two-way conversation. I'm an avatar. You're in the real world at this event. How can we then party? How can we communicate together and kind of have that? So I think all of that, this whole like, how does the real world, kind of the physical world, work with the digital, whether it's dancers, to your point, MJ, or Zoom calls and all the like, all of that, I think we're going to see a lot more of that, at least in Sansar, especially over the next kind of 12 months or so, as the return
That's
to
crazy. So like, Emma, think like we take Vanessa, and Elena Cruz, right? And so they are potentially able to shuffle dance, and their avatars will repeat, will dance that in the virtual world. Or one could be in a virtual world where it's like DJ Boots got this big screen and showing whoever's dancing in the real world, while the real world girl that's dancing, she's seeing the virtual avatar dancing, who is also a real dance coming from Elena, who is in a different place. Like, this is really next level stuff. It really is. And it's going nowhere. So I think we should all embrace it and get excited about it. And I can't wait what happens next. Like you said, predicting what happens next. And now it's like 1 week at a time, 1 month at a time. But for now, short term, I'm very excited about the Elro collaboration, of course, and the Tobacco Doc. The lineup is incredible. If you guys don't know, check out the lineup on that thing, and I don't think you'll want to miss it, And big ups to LWE for putting it together, because it's definitely going to connect the artists and the fans in this platform to bring them into virtual space and kind of kick off. I bet you it'll be the first experience for a lot of the fans, just because the lineup is very hard to miss. You have to, real techno house music fans are not going to want to miss it. So check it out. Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. This was very educational and also exciting. And we'll definitely bring you back in 6 months. Maybe by then you'll be virtual you and not real you. Maybe work and your virtual you will be doing the podcast. Who the hell knows?
Yeah. No, I love it. Well, thanks so much.
That was my biggest takeaway from trying the headset on. And I'm not saying anybody should go and do it, but all I'm saying that maybe, if you smoke a little joint or you take a little piece of mushroom, you can have a headset and have a party at home with your friends. It's going to sound really weird today, but we'll cut this piece of me saying it and we'll play it in 5 years, and it's not going to be weird. And people will say, yeah, okay, totally do that 3 times a year now, common thing. So let's see where it all evolves. And thank you, Sam.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. It was great connecting. MJ, always a pleasure. Emma, it was great to meet you. I love hearing the enthusiasm. Let me know if you ever need anything.
Thank you so much.
What a weird future that's coming.
Clone me. Clone me. I need a clone. I don't have time.
I know. Got to do it. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Let me know. Give me a shout if you ever need anything in future. But definitely keep one eye on this space at the very least. I think there's just so much room for kind of fun creativity to take place.
Definitely.
Awesome. The future looks bright. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Alrighty. That was amazing. What do you think of Sam and everything he had to say?
The guy knows what he's talking about clearly. Look, he reconfirms everything that I think and I've shared with you, and time will show, right? Whether or not all this ambitious visions I have of how this is something that helps everyone in our industry. But until I see otherwise, I'm a big believer that everyone needs to get VR ready, because this thing is going to go by real quick. And NFTs right now are flying and people are calling. I've spoken to 15 artists in the past 24 hours. And I'm like, do you know what NFT is? And they're like, yeah, I kind of heard. Don't miss out. Well, VR is way further. And I think that giving ability to musicians that otherwise wouldn't have the reach, that's what I'm most excited about. Same for events or festivals that do special, unique production, but don't have the funding or small or really have something to bring as value to the fan, and they're just too small. It's going to take them too long. This is the chance to really go global connect with the fan base, create a bigger audience, and then invite them to a physical event. I think this thing is very interconnected. And I think the VR is not here to take a share of entertainment away from live events.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's here to actually maximize live events in general and add to it.
Yep, I completely agree. I think live streaming has been one thing to like be at home and have those experiences, but I think to have a VR experience with your favorite artist or a festival that you love is just the next step up. And I can't wait to try it out and report back on what I think about it, but it's really exciting. I think the possibilities he talked about and teased some of their upcoming events sound really, really incredible. So hopefully people can get on board and get involved and go show Sam and Sansar some love.
And I have a favor to ask of everyone who is listening or watching. Please, this podcast is something we're having a lot of fun with, but we are truly doing it for you. We need you to voice who is it that you want to see next? Who do you want us to invite? It doesn't have to be a specific person. You can ask for anyone from festival organizer to specific festival organizer to someone in the world of production or dancing or artist or management or agent. Just leave us a comment. It's like, hey guys, we didn't like that. It was too long. It was boring. Your feedback is going to shape us up, and ultimately we're doing it for you. So let us get better. There's always lots of room for improvement. Unfortunately, I can't change my accent. That's always going to be an issue here. But in terms of the topics and the guests, we'll adjust to your likings because we're doing it for you. So please talk to us, tell us, and let's go.
Yep. And you can touch base with me at Emma Kapotis and MJ at The One and Only on Instagram. And the DMs are open at Festival Insider. We're on Twitter. We're on YouTube. You guys can come subscribe and watch the interviews over there. Rate, review on iTunes, all of the things. And we appreciate your feedback as always. Thank you so much for listening. We love you guys. Bye.
Well, maybe I'll shave a little next time.
Sounds good. Yeah, if you guys are watching on YouTube, you'll know what he's talking about. Everybody listening, go check out the YouTube channel. Thanks. Bye, guys.